Hello and welcome back to Tech Comics, where today we'll be looking at the Silver Age of American comics, starting with the return of the superhero. In DC's Showcase number 4, The Flash returned to the comic book world, revamped by Julia Schwartz and Carmen Infantino, heralding the start of the Silver Age. After a few appearances in Showcase, The Flash met enough success for other Golden Age heroes to return, being revamped like him to update them for the new mainstream audience. In 1958, however, Marvel Comics released Strange Worlds number 1, the first book put out together by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Their pairing would soon give birth to many heroes at the start of the Marvel Age. The Marvel Age may have had its origin in that fateful issue, but it wasn't until 1961 that it really took off. Fantastic Four number 1 came out that year as the first superhero team book that Marvel had made. In DC Comics, members of the various superhero teams all got along and had no major problems between them. They accepted their powers and responsibilities and all the consequences of them with pride, and put aside their egos to help one another as needed. Not so with the Fantastic Four. Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, was hideous to the comic books populace and to himself, and he didn't get along with his fellow teammates, especially blaming Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards himself, for the disfigurement that came with his powers. He and his teammates fought with one another almost as often as with their foes. They seemed real in this regard, and the Hulk only further accentuated the Thing's hatred by the mob mentality to even greater heights. In Fantastic Four Annual number 3, which came out in 1965, Reed Richards and Sue Storm got married, something unheard of in comics where the hero often wouldn't even kiss the girl. Even further, 3 years later, they would have a son and have to go through the unique troubles of raising their superpowered baby while at the same time having to face the dangers of their adventurous lifestyle. 1962 saw issue 123 of The Flash, putting both the Silver Age and Golden Age versions of the hero together in the same comic. It was a tad confusing, but it would set the groundwork for parallel Earths and the DC multiverse to later be dealt with by DC. However, while the Silver Age Flash and Fantastic were groundbreaking in many ways, it was Marvel's Amazing Fantasy number 15 that would bring forth the company's greatest asset, the Amazing Spider-Man. Peter Parker gained his powers from a radioactive spider bite, which, like the Fantastic Four and the Incredible Hulk, tied into the fear of the atomic bomb of the 60s, but he was much more relatable than either the Fantastic Four or Bruce Banner. He had a hard time getting dates as he was a nerd, bullies picked on him, and as his readership grew older, so too did he. James Jonah Jameson was his infuriating boss who hated his superheroic alter ego and underpaid his unmasked counterpart. He had difficulty dealing with landlords and relatives, with problems in his costume and keeping his identity a secret. He went through a sort of superheroic puberty that made him relatable to all ages, and he was a terrified but wisecracking youngster who wanted to improve the world in both his identities. His popularity lasts to this day, overshadowing most superheroes across the globe in popularity. Spider-Man's appearance may have ended the Amazing Fantasy series he started in, but the creation of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko would crawl out of the panels of his origin into his own series with little difficulty. The trio worked together on many series, sometimes in pairs and sometimes all three together. Between the three of them, over 90% of the Marvel comic superheroes in the 60s were created. Most are still around today. They also created other superhero teams like the Avengers and the X-Men. In addition, they gave their villains superpowers as well, something rare in comics at that time. Usually heroes and heroines fought monsters, evil scientists, mobsters, criminals from alternate realities, and indirect magical forces. But usually a villain was easily beaten by a hero. With the growing Marvel Comics universe, however, tension was raised as the villains became more powerful to combat their most hated foes. While DC's Aquaman may have given a message against racism before the X-Men, the mutant heroes did so with more prominent symbolism, which also covered disabilities and other discriminations as well. This in large part is why the X-Men has had such a lasting following, having so many readers who could relate to their problems, and as such the range of X-Men featured comics has only grown over the decades. 1966 also brought forth the first main black superhero that Marvel would produce in the Golden Age, the Black Panther. While his popularity has never been as high as other titles, he did stand firmly enough that other superheroes of color would soon follow after. That's all for this week. Be sure to come back in 2 weeks as I cover the Bronze Age of American comics. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.